Our next speaker needs no introduction, but I will introduce him. Dr. George Abungu, who, as you know, is a Kenyan archaeologist, and he's been in many organisations, and we will, you can look at that in the book, and I think, you know, George has been a strong voice for all things African, so we look forward to his presentation. Thank you, George.
First of all, let me take this opportunity to thank very much the organizers of this conference, especially Archer St. Clair, and also our chair, and also to declare that I think it was Professor Cameron who proposed me to Archer St. Clair, and thank you very much, and you have been responsible for all the problems, of course, since yesterday. Thank you very much. Well, mine is absolutely going to be very short. I'm trying to cover, all of us are trying to cover in 15 minutes, quite some heavy work here. But it's really the nuts and the bolts in this case. I just want to take you through sort of a journey of a cultural landscape in Africa, in Kenya, called the Kayas, which are forested areas of the Mijikenda people on the East African coast. And before we go to that, very, very quickly, these are some of the landscapes of Africa. Yesterday, we had quite a bit of gardens of North America and Europe. And at some stage, I thought maybe now cultural landscape has become basically gardens. But I think that I felt that I should also show you some of these things that we have. And you can see whether you are dealing with the flamingos in Kenyan lakes, or Mount Kilimanjaro, or Mosiatunya, which is all listed as natural landscapes, but really cultural landscapes. And I think Susan can talk about that. Or even just the sunsets and the rainbow. The South African government, you know that South Africa calls itself the rainbow nation because it's such a mixed, and they borrow from nature. So we are very much into nature. And it's not only this, you also have, architecture. So you have, Aksum, for those who know, the Swahili coast, this is in Kenya. Here you go to Mali, and here is the Afro-Brazilian architecture, which moved between Brazil and Africa. And then these are the common ones that you always think you find in the continent. But they are more than that, as you can see. Now, we always tend to forget about faces. When we look at our heritage in the continent, heritage basically is about humanity, and it is also by people and with people. It is not for people. This is not the way we look at it nowadays. So this idea of tending to forget the people, we are trying to put faces into heritage. We think faces, ages, the needs, and the voices of all these people must be heard. Whether you are a 90-year-old lady, or a Maasai Moran, or a young children, they are different kinds of communities, and we need to take this into consideration. And that is one way that we've been looking at heritage. Of course, we're dealing with the convention, World Heritage Convention, the 1972 convention. And I believe that there are some people here probably who hear about UNESCO, talk about UNESCO, but they are not sure when it was founded. So I decided to put that just to remind ourselves that it was established at that time, came into force on 4th of November 1946, and basically to create conditions for the true dialogue based upon respect for common shared values and the dignity of each society and its cultures. Also to achieve a global vision of sustainable development based upon observance of human rights, mutual respect, and alleviation of poverty. So from that particular time, you can see that all these things that we are talking about are actually captured in the vision and mission of UNESCO. And so if we have not been doing them, then it means that we really have not been following those visions. But very clear. And of course, there have been some conventions that have also come up, the Convention of Protection and Promotion of Cultural Diversity. And this has promoted dialogue among cultures and civilizations, not culture. And that's why sometimes I tend to feel very bad when we are talking about, having one world with one boundary and one Western thinking and this great one happy family. I think that diversity is absolutely important. And this is the whole concept of Global Alliance for Cultural Diversity. And a very important quote that I want to say is the quote that cultural diversity is one of the roots of development as necessary for humankind as biodiversity is for nature. If that is true, then we need to accept that there is diversity. We need to accept that there are differences and there are also similarities, and it is this collection of those diversities that creates human heritage. And that is what we are trying to look at. And this is a very common saying, the war begins in the minds of men, but it just reinforces the need for UNESCO to be able to create peace among people. These are some of the challenges, but I'll not go through them. Heritage sometimes, when you look at it, nature and culture, it is like ICOMOS and IUCN there. Are they friends? But what I am trying to express here, this is the Friday Mosque in Kilwa. You can see that tree has already taken over culture. So it is nature and culture are so intertwined. And if you remove one, the other one will collapse. Now, some of us will say, oh, no, they should be separated. It's destroying the cultural, heritage. But no. Don't you think that people who live there knew and saw these trees growing and encouraged it? To them, that tree also has spiritual significance just as the building has. So we should not be separating all these things. It's our own creation. The element of the kaya are these old settlements. They are forested areas. As was mentioned in Martil's talk, they have great endemic plants. They also have great spiritual significance. They are absolutely important cultural heritage sites, and they are listed as World Heritage. Now, listening is a heritage in itself. Listening is absolutely important, and the people you are seeing here are the elders of the kaya who currently take care of it. In the part of the world where we come from, we listen to the elders. They are the custodians. They don't control. They actually manage these sites on behalf of the community. And they always do not discuss in terms of the Western, democracy where people shout at one another. As Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the president of Tanzania, used to say, we sit under a tree and we talk until we agree. And you can see that they're actually talking on how to manage these things. So through listening and talking, this is one way in which they have been able to manage this heritage. Now, the kayas also, they are sacred sites, they are national monuments, they are World Heritage sites, and as you can see, that is a sign showing the World Heritage site. The next one here, that is the Minister for Culture for Kenya. And here, this is the ambassador, the former ambassador of France in Kenya. And then the same here. So the whole issue of partnership, the kayas and the elders of the kayas have realized the importance of partnership. Partnership before their boundaries. And they have actually gone into that. So they are in touch with the embassies, they are in touch with the ministries concerned, they are in touch with the international community. And this is shown even with this particular element where the ambassador himself and the husband are moving in. But everybody has to respect the heritage itself, what it says. You have to remove your clothes, you have to be initiated into that before you can go in. So you're not a tourist and you move in, and that is one powerful element that they have maintained to ensure that they manage this heritage sustainably, so that you do not lose the fact that it has become a World Heritage, and so you open it up to everybody. Everybody subscribes to the same rule. That is rule number one. And even if you are the Director General of UNESCO there with the Kaya elders, of course you have to listen. So that is the Director General of UNESCO in a Kaya, visiting the Kaya, and this is part of the international partnership that they have grown. So the other thing that we need to look at is the fact that local does not mean that you do not create partnership outside. We have to be able to work with the people from different places. So local also means global. And I think this is, to us, extremely important. And the Kayas have shown that they can be able to partner with people from outside. They can be able to attract politicians. And a few slides that I'm going to show you now, going to show you how politics of heritage has sort of gone into the Kayas. Because once they're listed, and because the Kayas have been very successful in mobilizing the people, in mobilizing the resources, in managing this heritage that at sometimes are located in very prime lands, the politicians have gone there because they are listened to, they listen, and the Kayas have also used that heritage to manipulate the politics of the day to be able to make sure that the Kayas are protected at the highest level. Now, I've just mentioned that this is the Minister for Heritage in Kenya. This one here is a Muslim, and the Minister for Heritage earlier on, who then became the Minister for Tourism inside the Kaya with the Kaya elders. This one here is from the group, from the community, but he was the Minister of Industry. So the Kaya has become sort of a pull. It's pulling even the politicians. And this one here, who is being initiated, is the Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga. It shows you that heritage also has the power to pull policymakers. And the Kaya elders have utilized that to make sure that they are able to be listened to and their voices are listened to. In this case here also, you can see that the Vigangos, these are the posts representing the past. These came from this country. They were stolen, there was repatriation, and then they had to be reintroduced back. But you can see that things are now changing, because if you do not then do some reinforcement, they will come back and take them. But this also has implication on the site itself. So these are some of the challenges that they're having. But the fact that they can still reintroduce this back, although these things have traveled, the spirit has come back to where it was. It is the elders have decided collectively. Now, the other element that I want to show is on issue of sustainability. Here, you have the tree planting. It is not only sitting and waiting for tourists, or sitting and waiting for people to guide, but what are the things that they are able to do to ensure that there's sustainability? And in this case here, they decided that they have to do tree planting so that people are not tempted to go to the Kayas to go and cut firewood. Secondly, that they have created a nursery that they can be able to sell the trees. So this has been very effective. And you can see that it is simple, it is straightforward, it's home-based, and it's working with ambassadors and working with the communities and all that. Now here is the issue of intellectual debates. When we come here, and I've listened to this many times, when we talk about community, they are out of intellectual debates. We are in the intellectual debates. This is a good example. These are the Kaya elders sitting and talking with participants from a training course to develop a management plan. What happened? Develop a management plan for the Kayas. This one here. So they are also engaged in the discussion. And it is important that we as professionals take this knowledge that we're talking about, the traditional knowledge, engage them in the dialogue, and make sure that they also understand that this is part of the contribution to intellectualism. And I think that, so that we don't just take them for granted. The other way in which partnership has been developed is through training institutions, heritage training institutions. This is a case where managers, directors from heritage institutions from East Africa were having seminars in Mombasa at Center for Heritage Development. They asked to be taken to the Kayas. And here they are discussing with the Kaya elders. So they are discussing their own issues wherever they come from. So the question of exchange of ideas, of exchange of experiences, it is not localized, it is now at the global level. But even more important is telling the story. They have managed to continue telling the story through intangible heritage. They encourage that, they practice it, they live it, as you can see here. So in this case, you have people reciting issues of heritage within the museum systems, within the Kaya heritage systems, the singings and dancings and so on, to ensure that the intangible part of it can also continue to be practiced. So I'm sorry that it has to be very quickly, but I think that we can take questions and other discussions during the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. And I think that was some wonderful practical examples on ground and answers some of the questions that came up in this morning's discussion about what is the community, how is the involvement made. I think it's fantastic, and it's wonderful to see, having been involved a little bit in the nomination, to see the result is really quite exciting and overcoming. Thank you.